Welcome to Celtic Tomes, bringing you readings from bygone books.
Welcome to Celtic Tomes, readings by Gary and Ruth from the classic books of Celtic lore and study. Book 4, Chapter 1 of British Goblins, Welsh Folklore, Fairy Mythology, Legends and Traditions by Wirt Sikes.
Book 4. Bells, Wells, Stones and Dragons. Gorgons and Hydras and Chimeras dire. Milton, Paradise Lost. Then up their eyes and wee man, franeath the moss grey stan. His face was wan like the cauliflower, for he neither had blood nor bane. Hogg, the Witch of Fife. Where he stood of ancient time, there was a springing well, from which fast trickled forth a silver flood, full of great virtues, and for medicine good, for unto life the dead it could restore. Spenser, Fairy Queen. Chapter 1. Base of the Primeval Mythology, Bells and their Ghosts, the bell that committed murder and was damned for it, the occult powers of bells, their work as detectives, doctors, etc., legend of the Bell of Rhayader St. Illtyd's wonderful bell, and the golden bell of Llandaff. Section 1. The human mind in its infancy turns instinctively to fetishism. The mind of a primeval man resembled that of a child. Children have to learn by experience that the fire which burns them is not instigated by malice. A Mississippi Negro boy who was brought by a friend of mine from his southern home to a northern city, and who had never seen snow, found the ground one morning covered with what he supposed to be salt, and going out to get some, returned complaining that it bit his fingers. In his primitive condition, man personified everything in nature. Animate and inanimate objects were alike endowed with feelings, passions, emotions, moral qualities. On this basis rests the primeval mythology. The numerous superstitions associated with bells, wells, and stones in Wales excite constant inquiries as regards their origin in fetishism, in paganism, in solar worship, or in church observances. That bells, especially, should suggest the supernatural to the vulgar mind is not strange. The occult powers of bells have place in the popular belief of many lands. The Flemish child who wonders how the voices got into the bells is paralleled by the Welsh lad who hears the bells of Aberdyfi talking in metrical words to a musical chime. The ghosts of bells are believed to haunt the earth in many parts of Wales. Allusion has been made to those castle bells which are heard ringing from the submerged towers in Crymlyn Lake. Like fancies are associated with many Welsh lakes. In Llangorse Pool, Breconshire, an ancient city is said to lie buried, from whose cathedral bells on a calm day may be heard a faint and muffled chime, pealing solemnly far down in the sepial depths. A legend of Drefethin relates that in the church of St. Cadog, in that place, was a bell of wondrous powers, a gift from Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, Lord of Caerleon. A little child who had climbed to the belfry was struck by the bell and killed, not through the wickedness of the bell itself, but through a spell which had been put upon the unfortunate instrument by an evil spirit. But though innocent of murderous intent, the wretched bell became forfeit to the demons on account of its fatal deed. They seized it and bore it down through the earth to the shadow realm of Annwn. And ever since that day, When a child is accidentally slain at Drevethyn, the bell of St. Cadog is heard tolling mournfully underneath the ground, where it disappeared ages ago. Section 2. There was anciently a belief that the sound of brass would break enchantment, as well as cause it, and it is presumed that the original purpose of the common custom of tolling the bell for the dead was to drive away evil spirits. Originally, the bell was tolled not for the dead, but for the dying. It was believed that evil spirits were hovering about the sick chamber, waiting to pounce on the soul as soon as it should get free from the body, and that the bell was tolled for the purpose of driving them away. Later, the bell was not tolled till death had occurred, and in this form the custom survives here, as in many lands. Before the Reformation, there was kept in all Welsh churches a handbell, which was taken by the sexton to the house where a funeral was to be held, and rung at the head of the procession. When the voices of the singers were silent at the end of a psalm, the bell would take up the burden of complaint in measured and mournful tones, and ring till another psalm was begun. It was at this period deemed sacred. The custom survived long after the Reformation in many places, as at Caerleon, the little Monmouthshire village, which was a bustling Roman city when London was a hamlet. The bell, called the bangi, was still preserved in the parish of Llandaff half a dozen years ago. I believe the custom of ringing a handbell before the corpse on its way through the streets is still observed at Oxford, when a university man is buried. The town marshal is the bellman for this office. The custom is associated with the same superstitious belief which is seen in the passing bell, the notes of pure bronze freeing the soul from the power of evil spirits. Section 3. The Welsh were formerly strong in the belief that bells could perform miracles, detect thieves, heal the sick, and the like. In many instances they were possessed of locomotive powers and would transport themselves from place to place when they had occasion, according to their own sweet will, and without human intervention. It's even recorded that certain handbells required to be tied with the double cord of an exorcism and a piece of twine, or they would get up and walk off in the night. Bells which presage storms, as well as other disasters, have been believed to exist in many parts of Wales. In Pembrokeshire, the unexpected tolling of a church bell in the night is held to be the sure precursor of a calamity, a belief which may be paralleled in London, where there are still people who believe such tolling on the part of the great bell of St. Paul's portends disaster to the royal family. In the Cromwellian Wars, the sacrilegious followers of the stern old castle-hater carried off a great bell from St. David's, Pembrokeshire. They managed to get it on shipboard, but in passing through Ramsey Sound, the vessel was wrecked, a direct result, the superstitious said, of profanely treating the bell. Ever since that time, Pembroke people have been able to hear this sunken bell ring from its watery grave when a storm is rising. Section 4. The legend of the Bell of Rhayader perpetuates a class of story which reappears in other parts of Great Britain. It was in the 12th century that a certain contumacious knight was being imprisoned in the castle of Rhayader. His wife, being devoted to him, and a good Catholic, besought the aid of the monks to get him out. They were equal to the occasion, at least insofar as to provide for her service a magical bell, which possessed the power of liberating from confinement any prisoner who should set it up on the wall and ring it. The wife succeeded in getting the bell secretly into her husband's possession, and he set it up on the wall and rang it. But although he had gathered his belongings together and was fully prepared to go, the doors of his prison refused to open. The castellan mocked at the magical bell and kept the knight in durance vile. So therefore, for of course the story could not be allowed to end here, the castle was struck by lightning, and both it and the town were burned in one night, excepting only the wall upon which the magic bell was hanging. Nothing remains of the castle walls in this day. Section 5. The Bell of St. Illtyd was greatly venerated in the Middle Ages. A legend concerning this wonderful bell relates that a certain king had stolen it from the church and borne it to England, tied about the neck of one of his horses. For this deed, the king was destroyed, but repenting before his death, ordered the bell to be restored to its place in Wales. Without waiting to be driven, the horse with the bell about his neck set out for Wales, followed by a whole drove of horses, drawn by the melodious sound of the bell. Wonderful to tell, the horse was able to cross the River Severn and come into Wales, the great collection of horses following. In hastening along the shore and over the mountains and through the woods, he came to the road which went towards Glamorgan, all the horses hearing and following the sweet sound. When they came to the banks of the River Tav, a clergyman heard the sound of the bell and went out to meet the horse, and together carried the bell to the gate of St. Illtyd's church. There the horse bent down and loosed his precious burden from his neck. And it fell on a stone, from which fall a part of it was broken, which is to be seen until the present day, in memory of the eminent miracle. Some 30 years ago, a bell was discovered at Llandaff Major, in Glamorganshire, which was thought to be the identical bell of this saint. The village named was the scene of his exploits, many of which were miraculous to the point of Arabian Nights' marvellousness. The discovered bell was inscribed, Sancte Illtyd ora pro nobis, and stood upon the gate of the quaint old town hall. But though the bell was unmistakably ancient, it bore intrinsic evidence of having been cast long after the saint's death, when his name had become venerated. He was one of King Arthur's soldiers, who afterwards renounced the world, and founded several churches in Glamorganshire. Section 6. Among the many legends of Llandaff which still linger familiarly on the lips of the people, is that of the Bell of St. Eudochius, second bishop of that see. In the ancient Book of Llandaff, where are preserved the records of that cathedral from the earliest days of Christianity on this island, the legend is thus related.
St. Eudochius, being thirsty, after undergoing labour, and more accustomed to drink water than any other liquor, came to a fountain in the Vale of Llandaff, not far from the church, that he might drink, and where he found women washing butter, after the manner of the country. And sending to them his messengers and disciples, they requested that they would accommodate them with a vessel, that their pastor might drink therefrom, who, ironically, as mischievous girls, said, "We have no cup besides that which we hold in our hands, namely, the butter." And the man of blessed memory, taking it, formed one in the shape of a small bell, and he raised his hand so that he might drink therefrom. And he drank, and it remained in that form, that is, a golden one, so that it appeared to those who beheld it to consist altogether of the purest gold, which, by divine power, is from that day reverently preserved in the church of Llandaff, in memory of the holy man. And it is said that by touching it, health is given to the diseased.
That was Book 4, Chapter 1 of British Goblins, Welsh Folklore, Fairy Mythology, Legends and Traditions by Wirt Sikes. A link to the full text can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to comment on this chapter, pop over to our show notes and join in or start a conversation at celtictomes.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, why not try our sister podcast, the Celtic Myth Pod Show, which brings the stories of ancient Celts to life with narrative and drama, as well as bringing you modern Celtic music, stories and information. Find the Celtic Myth Pod Show in all the places where the best podcasts hang out, or on our website at celticmythpodshow.com. You've been listening to Celtic Tomes, read by Gary and Ruth. This podcast has been produced by the Celtic Myth Show.